You stopped crying a long time ago. Not because you healed, but because you stopped expecting anyone to care. Somewhere along the way, tears felt pointless, and emotions became heavy things you didn't have the energy to lift anymore. So you folded them up like clothes in a suitcase and hid them in the corners of yourself. And because no one ever asked what you were carrying, you learned to travel light, you learned to feel light, you learned to feel less. And numbness, once terrifying, became familiar, like a quiet room where nothing hurts because nothing touches you at all. People think detachment is apathy, but they don't see the years that built this distance. They don't see the child who cried in a room where no one came, or whose feelings were too loud for the adults around them. They don't see how quickly a small heart learns that silence is safer than expression, that disappearing is sometimes easier than being seen. So you became good at going invisible. You learned to read the temperature of a room before you entered it. You became hyper-aware, hyper-vigilant, always scanning for danger even when none was there, because danger, for you, rarely announced itself. It arrived in raised voices, unpredictable moods, withdrawn affection. It arrived in the ways love felt like a reward you had to earn, instead of something you deserved simply for existing. And when you grow up like that, something in you splits. One part stays alert, constantly monitoring, constantly bracing. The other retreats deeper and deeper inside, storing everything that feels too heavy to hold in your hands. That inner child, that softer version of you, hides in the corners of your psyche because the world taught them that feeling too much is a liability, that vulnerability is a threat, that emotional expression is an opening for disappointment. And so the mind, trying desperately to survive, builds walls around the heart. Walls that look like calm. Walls that look like strength. Walls that look like I'm fine. But numbness is never just numbness. It's a message, a protective layer. A coping mechanism your nervous system built when it had no other tools. Dissociation, emotional shutdown, that blankness behind the eyes. These are trauma responses, not personality traits. They are what happens when feeling becomes overwhelming, when there is no safe place to land, when the body decides it's better to disconnect than drown, so you float, you drift, you watch life from a slight distance, close enough to mimic living, but far enough that nothing pierces you. And maybe you don't even notice it at first. You think you're just tired, you think you're just busy, you think you've outgrown the softness you used to have, but then you catch yourself laughing without really feeling joy, comforting someone without really sensing empathy, achieving things without the spark of pride. You realize your life keeps moving forward, yet something in you stays frozen, detached, unreachable. And people might praise you for being calm or collected, not realizing that neutrality is not your natural state, it's your shield. What they don't see is how exhausting it can be, how much energy it takes to stay disconnected, how heavy numbness becomes when it stops protecting you and starts limiting you. There are moments, quiet ones, when everything slows down and you feel the weight of everything you've avoided. The grief you never allowed yourself to feel, the anger you swallowed, the love you convinced yourself you didn't need, the loneliness you pretended you couldn't feel. It's all still there. It has always been there. And maybe that scares you. The idea that healing means opening doors you locked for a reason. The idea that reconnecting with yourself means remembering the pain you worked so hard to outrun. But healing isn't a sudden flood. It's a gentle return, a slow thaw, a process of letting the emotional body wake up after years of sleeping with one eye open. It starts with noticing small things, the way tension sits in your shoulders, the moments you dissociate mid-conversation, the way you shut down when something feels too intimate. It starts with realizing that your detachment was never a failure. It was your brilliance, your resilience, your nervous system keeping you alive. But survival isn't the same as living. And eventually your body starts whispering that it wants more. It wants presence. It wants connection. It wants the kind of safety where you don't have to disappear to stay protected. And the journey toward that begins with compassion, not for others, but for yourself, For the version of you who numbed out because they didn't have support. For the child who had to parent themselves. For the young adult who learned to handle everything alone. For the inner child who still thinks they'll be punished for having needs. When you offer that part of yourself even a small amount of warmth, something shifts. You start feeling tiny flickers of emotion, not overwhelming, just hints. A softness in your chest when you see something beautiful, a sting in your eyes when a memory surfaces, a heaviness in your throat when someone asks you how you really are, and instead of shutting down, you stay. For just a second longer than before, you let yourself feel the edge of the feeling, you let yourself be human. Reconnection is not dramatic, it's subtle. It's the slow undoing of years of self-protection. It's allowing yourself to breathe deeper. It's letting your guard down around one person, even slightly. It's choosing to sit with your emotions rather than escape into distraction. It's acknowledging your inner child not as a burden, but as a part of you that deserves gentleness. And one day, without noticing when it happened, you realize that the numbness has loosened. That your body doesn't brace as often, that you're able to cry again, not because you're breaking, but because you finally feel safe enough to feel. That you can experience joy without fearing its loss. That you can let someone in without rehearsing the exit. That life feels closer, richer, fuller, not because the world changed, but because you did. Emotional detachment was your survival, but it doesn't have to be your home. You are allowed to return to yourself. You are allowed to feel again. You are allowed to be more than the numbness that protected you. Healing won't erase your past, but it will give you back your presence. And in that presence, you may discover something you forgot you could have, a life that feels like yours again.